My name is Susan Reed and I am talking to you from the garden of the building which I moved to in Boscombe, near Bournemouth, on the coast. Nearly 4 years ago I left London, where I'd been living in a flat that was just looked out on what was the Grenfell Tower. And that seemed to me to be a big signal that it was high time that I moved out of London and found myself somewhere greener. And so, although I was in Holland Park there, which is very nice, it was not so nice on the other side. So when I came here, I also was determined that wherever I moved in the country should have plenty of opportunities for other pursuits. My main thing has been that I don't believe in retirement as such. I do believe that we are self-employed till the day we die, and that, you know, we are our own boss, and it's who we choose to rent ourselves out to during our lifetime. And I was born on the 30th of December in the Cottage Hospital in Oakham, which did not cater for babies, so I was sort of shut away a lot of the time after I was born, so that I didn't disturb people. And I think that's still given me a huge desire for always being out in the light, and that's why I love to be here in the garden. My father was in the army. He had gone to Durham University, but the medical school, which was in Newcastle, where both he and my mother had come from. And so, being in the army during the war, he stayed on in the RAMC, and so at that time he was based in Lincoln when I was born, and we lived in Lincoln until he was posted. My brother was born when I was nearly 2, and then when I was 3, my father was posted to Hong Kong and went ahead of us, and my mother and my brother and I went on a big army troop ship to Hong Kong when I was 4. Went from Hong Kong, we came back to England very briefly and were based near London. And then went to Malaya, and I call it Malaya because that's what it was called then. It's Malaysia now. And so we lived there from when I was 8 to 11. And my father was for some reason in Malaya I did go to an army school, but in Hong Kong he didn't really hold with army schools. And so I went to an infant school, and then I went to a Chinese school. There were 800 Chinese girls at this diocesan girls' school, and 8 Europeans. And I even learnt I learnt Chinese, but the main thing was that, you know, we had this very independent life where, as children, you were just able to go off on your bicycles and cycle along. We were meant to keep off the main roads as much as possible, but I would cycle across a tin mine to get to my ballet classes, for example. I would cycle all over Kuala Lumpur, really. And then we came back to England, which was a fairly rude shock in many ways, especially, you know, in terms of the cold and the difference. And I'd had to leave my little cat behind, and we'd had, you know, a couple of dogs as well in Malaya. And but that's when my parents were then posted to Germany, because that was a home posting after having been abroad for so long. And I went to boarding school, and so I went to Horn School in Bedfordshire, which shortly after I left actually changed its name to Clarendon, and is now, because it was a beautiful old Georgian country house. While I was at school, when I was 14, or before I was 14, my mother gave us the news that I was about to have another brother or sister. So this was very exciting, and because I had never really, I'd often had trouble with my younger brother, I think as many children do. I was determined that I was going to have a sister, so I knitted everything in pink for her, for this new baby coming, and spent my time knitting baby clothes. And because I always used to knit under the desk at school, clothes for myself as well. So my sister was born when I was 14 and my brother was 12. And her name's Alexandra Francis, and my brother's Christopher Martin Reed. I was very lucky, again, through friends of my parents from Hong Kong days. One of the people they knew was called Margaret Austin, who ran the Norma Skemp agency in London, big employment agency then. And she and her cohort told me that they, again, would be difficult without my typing, but that they had got, they were providing all the secretaries for the newly formed, at that time, London Weekend Television. It had just come into existence, just got the contract from the Independent Television Authority. And so they worked on getting me a job in admin with London Weekend Television. And so I went along and I was hired by them to read all the scripts of every single thing that went out on air for defamation and libel or any contravention of the Television Act 1964. So it meant that I, who loved reading, had a wonderful job because I just used to read all the scripts from rehearsal drafts, rehearsal scripts, right through to camera scripts. And my boss was the assistant company secretary, and his father was the director of the British Museum. And in order for me to do my research and make sure that, we weren't giving names to people that actually might, by coincidence, exist and therefore be sued for any libel, my boss got me a reader's ticket for the reader's room in the British Museum. So every week I had my little car that my father had bought me for my 21st birthday, because he was a great car man. And he bought this car from his nursing sister, because he was then working in Leicester in the Royal Infirmary. And he bought me this white Morris 1000 deluxe version, red leather seats, 4 doors. The old flicker indicators had been replaced.